Bless me, Father, for I have sinned. It has been 48 hours since I last bought a book online. In this confessional, my son, honesty is the best policy. Okay, it's been less than 2 hours since I last bought a book online. I see. I fear for your soul, my son. In my defence, Father, it was only £3.50, including postage, and for a giant Peter F. Hamilton hardback, first edition too. A recent one, but still. Thou shalt find books in the wild. It's right there in the commandments. Cheating is a sin, my son. In your book hunting you must trust in providence and fate and good timing, for it is good for the soul. Yes, Father, but I was missing that one, and who knows when it might turn up in a charity shop. Surely the good Lord hates an incomplete set. But I do feel, well, a bit dirty, and not in a good way. Son, you must resist temptation and impatience, for it is the devil's work. Okay, so the book I'm watching on eBay that's currently $1.89 with no bids, and the book in my ABE Books basket. The devil's work! Really, Father, I feel like those sins are a done deal at this point. There's no point in bailing now. I'm committed. I'll just take the hit. Promise it won't happen again. Very sorry and all that. Can we get on with the absolving now, please? I have a book haul to do. Very well. Your sins are forgiven in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Sci Fi. Your penance is to say 3 Project Hail Marys and to seek out missing books only by forlornly traipsing around charity shops. Amen to that. Right, my soul duly cleansed. We can get on with this book haul. Welcome to Sci-Fi Scavenger, my booktube channel. A special welcome if this is your first visit. Why not subscribe to the channel while you're here? So today I'm going to do a pretty decent, there's about 35 books here that we'll try to whip through. Some of which, as you could tell from my confession, were the result of impatience online and gap filling, but and there is a bit more of that to come perhaps in the next tour. But most of them, the vast majority, were acquired legit and in keeping with the commandment to find them in the wild. Okay, so first up we've got a decent copy of The Gap into Conflict, which is the first of the Donaldson gap cycle. For those of you that saw my last haul, the supermassive book haul, I bought all 5 of them, but which way around does it go? There we go. But this one is the first one, and it was in shitty condition despite being advertised as very good, so I got a refund for that one. That can go maybe to charity or possibly just in the bin, and replaced it with one that's in decent condition. Again, it was £3 or £4, not expensive. And I also got, because it was also in shit state, this is the one that I got last time. It's falling apart, it's in bad condition, pages missing, the binding's gone, pages are very yellowed. So that one was a reject, again, which I got a refund for, and I replaced it with this one, which again was for about £4, £3 something. It's got a bit of discoloration on the text block, but is otherwise in decent nick. I'm happy to pay £3 or £4 for that. It's in good condition and will be a good addition to the shelves. So next, having got, again in the last haul amongst others, Judas Unchained, which is the second of the Commonwealth saga, I thought for like about 5 minutes, well, I'll just have to wait until, you know, the universe provides and it rocks up in a charity shop or a second-hand bookshop or something. But I caved pretty much immediately and bought this online for like £5 or something, including postage. So I now have the full set of those, which I'm very pleased to have. They'll look great on the shelf. And my final act of impatience in this book haul, I can't guarantee that there won't be more, was and I must stop doing this, it's dangerous. I was staring at my Alistair Reynolds collection and thinking, what am I missing? Knowing that I'm missing a couple of the short story books, and maybe one of the novels. I think it's Pushing Ice that I'm missing, one of the standalone novels. So I just had a quick glance at, you know, perfectly innocent just as I was passing, glance at eBay and the great jumble sale in the cloud, and I saw this. I can't remember exactly how much it was, about £3.70 or something like that online. It's in really good condition, nice hardback. I think it's a first edition. Yep, 2006 first edition. It would have been rude not to at that money. Most likely in a charity shop I would have paid £2.50 for it, so I'm only paying like a £1.50 premium for the privilege of getting it delivered to my door. It is still cheating. That doesn't go on the reject pile, it goes on that pile. It is still cheating, but you know, whatever. Okay, so onto the legit books in this haul. There's a Neil Stevenson. It's one of his Baroque cycle. I think it's the final part, and they're all kind of monster, in keeping with Neil Stevenson's kind of habit, monster, big fat book. I have a feeling that I've read the first and maybe the second of them, but I don't think I've read it all. Certainly I don't have any of the others, so this is a sort of a down payment on the other two when they eventually arrive. That cost me £2.99 unusually, and obviously priced it at a premium because it's fat, I think. £2.99 in an Oxfam somewhere. And then we've got, there's a little bit of vintage action in this haul actually. So here we've got Paul Anderson's Tau Zero in the sort of black binding SF Masterworks, not the more garish yellow ones that are the more recent versions. But and even James Blish is calling this the ultimate hard science fiction novel. So I guess that means it's pretty hard. If I remember rightly, it's about like a generation ship that's going out to the stars, and their braking maneuver fails, and so instead of slowing down to stop at the planet they're aiming for, they just keep going, and eventually they accelerate to very close to light speed, I think. But more than that, I don't know. I got my first vintage dish, first dish of any kind actually, Thomas Dish. I don't have anything by him. I gather he's pretty good. He's being seen in a bit of a new light. I don't know when this was published in '68, and this is a 1978 reprint. It looks like it's a short story collection actually. I thought it was a novel, but it's no, there's 15 or so short stories in there, so that would be a nice bite-sized thing to take on. Good first exposure to Dish. And then I'm gradually filling out my Ender's Game sequence books. I think I've now got 1, 2, 3, 4. I think I've got 4 of the 6, or maybe it's 5. So I'm missing a couple, probably 1 or 2. And they're all in different formats, so this is different again. I don't have any others in this format, so I'll just have to live with the fact that they don't match for now. And then I found this SF Masterworks, the yellowy spine version in the Oxfam near my office, I think, and it's basically brand new. It's hardly been touched, which is why I assume they priced it at £2.99. It's £1 more than they usually do for second-hand books. But I've not heard of Lee Brackett. This is called The Long Tomorrow, and I gather it's a sort of post-nuclear apocalypse gig. But more than that, I don't know, so I'm looking forward to reading that at some point. Then I got A Restaurant at the End of the Universe. My Douglas Adams collection is burgeoning. I've got different versions of each of the books. I think this is the one that I was really looking for. It's the same version that I had when I was a kid. I think it's the original livery that it would have come in when it was published in 1980. Yeah, so this is the original UK paperback cover art that came with it. And I think the one that I've got, you know, frankly is pretty boring in comparison, so I will, if I'm sensible, I will give this to charity. If I'm not sensible, I'll keep both of them just for shits and giggles. I also found a Bruce Sterling Involution Ocean, which has got some nice cover art. It's a nice ship. I think this is set on an ocean world where there's only sort of one small island archipelago that's habitable. The rest of it is ocean. More than that, I don't know. I think I only have a couple of Bruce Sterling, so that's good to get that. And then I got Greg Egan, what I thought was a novel, but turns out is a short story collection. And slightly annoyingly, I have a big fat in the SF Masterworks up there. Which one is it? The big fat one. I can't do the wrong direction. That one, I think. That's got more stories in it than this one does, but about half to 2/3 of the stories that are in this are also in the other one. So I've got a few duplicates there, but some of them aren't. So I'll read those at some point. Greg Egan is pretty tough to read sometimes. He expects a lot of you as a reader. It's very hard sci-fi, some difficult concepts in there sometimes. But the short stories are pretty, they're chewable. You can eat them pretty easily. And I got Ian MacDonald. I have a big soft spot for Ian MacDonald. I really like his writing, even though I don't know if this really counts as science fiction, but it's got a supernatural element to it. So we'll call it good. Certainly a lot of his stuff is science fiction, so I'll include it for that reason alone, really, I think. But I haven't read this one before. I think it's meant to be very good. Okay, next we have the first two of the Gormenghast trilogy, Titus Groan and Gormenghast, as Titus Alone is the third one. I am arguably this isn't science fiction at all. I think this is firmly in the realms of fantasy, really, but sometimes you just say, fuck it, I've heard it's good, so I'm going to read it. So obviously the right thing to do would be to wait until the universe provides and the third one turns up at some point, ideally in a matching set, but that wouldn't matter too much. As you'll see in the next haul, that isn't quite the way that it panned out. But in my defence, I did not succumb to an impulsive eBay purchase. This was a different form of impatience, but you can tune in next time for the truth to that matter. So I went to the Oxfam bookshop in Marylebone, or sort of. It was on my way home from work in that I went after work and before I got home, but it's really not on my way home. It's quite out of my way. But I did that anyway, and I found a Julian May first edition hardback. It's a US edition, so it would have been a world first edition, I think, of the third book of the Galactic Milieu trilogy, which I haven't read any of. In fact, I've never read any of hers. I'm still waiting to find the first two of the Saga of the Exiles. I've only got books 3 and 4 at the moment. They'll turn up, or I'll lose the will to live and buy them somewhere online. But I don't feel in a mad rush to get those, so that they'll turn up. And I haven't ever seen any of these in the wild, so it was interesting to get this, which I paid big bucks for. That bookshop was very expensive. It was kind of central London prices. It was £3.50 or maybe even £4. Outrageous. Okay, then let's do the dicks next. So in the Oxfam woodshop in Woodley, Oxfam woodshop, it wasn't a woodshop, it was a bookshop in Woodley, the Oxfam bookshop in Woodley, where I think I'm in the habit of going once a week now, because they seem to have quite a fast turnaround there, and they always have something new every time I go. But the time before last I went, so not this weekend, just gone the weekend before, I got these, and they had someone that's the same person, because they all had the same gift aid voucher on them, token on them. Someone had dropped their entire Philip K. Dick collection. I had 7 in total. So the first, very pleasing in a matching set, I think what I usually refer to as his final trilogy, I think written in later in life, as Varlis, The Divine Invasion, and to check that, The Transmigration of Timothy Archer, which I think are in a series, and they're all in matching. They're actually American editions. Quite what they're doing on this side of the pond, I don't know. from the early 90s, if I remember rightly, 1991, something like that. These were printed, but they're all quite nice and colourful covers. You know, one might have preferred a more contemporaneous copy, preferably a UK one, but those are quite nice addition to the shelves. The spines are quite nice as well, a bit different, gold spines, fancy. So those are nice, pleased to have those. I also got the Zap gun. This is a UK edition, I'm not sure when it was published, and I don't know anything about it. It was published in 1975, but this was printed in the late 90s. You can tell it's a newer one. It doesn't have the jazzy 70s art in it, but still, it'll do. Nice copy. Then I've got, that's what I'm talking about from a cover art point of view, The World That Jones Made. Of interest to me because that's also my surname, so I like to think that one day I'll get to wear a cloak and a shiny suit just like that. I think that would work. And I've got what will be my second copy of Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep. The first one that I got was a Diddy Golanx 50 edition, which is quite small in comparison to this one, I think. But you know, this one's a little bit water damaged, or has got something spilt in it, coffee maybe. This one's in probably not a lot better condition, to be honest with you, but I'm convincing myself that I don't really mind having two versions of the same book, so long as they're not exactly matching. There'd be no point in having two identical books, would there? But different ones, that I can cope with, I think. So I can go back up there. So that's the new one, which is an SF Master, is it? Yeah, SF Masterworks, number 4. And then the last of the Dicks this time around is Time Out of Joint, which is again not one I've read before. Don't know much about it. The tagline on the back is, "How would you feel if solid objects began to dematerialise in front of your very eyes?" Which probably explains the wibbly wobbly writing on the front. So that would be intriguing. Yeah, so a good set of additions to my Philip K. Dick collection now. Probably now got, I don't know, a dozen maybe. Obviously there's plenty more to go, but good to have those. I got then Robert Heinlein's Starship Troopers. It's the movie tie-in version. I'm generally a bit snobby about the movie tie-in versions, but you know, it's the only version that is available to me at the moment, so that will do for now. If I see a nicer copy, and undoubtedly I will at some point in time, then that can go back into circulation, and I'll keep the nicer one. Would you believe that I do not, until now, have a copy of 2001 at Space Odyssey? I've read it a number of times. I had a copy of it in my youth. In fact, the very first science fiction book that I ever read, I was given to on my 10th birthday, was a compendium of science fiction books from Marks and Spencer's. It was a book. It was a big fat hardback book with 4 in it. 2001 was the first one. Then there was I, Robot, and then there was The Demolished Man by Alfred Bester, and then what was the 4th? God damn it! I can't remember, but there were 4, and I read them. That was really my introduction, aged about 10 or 11, to science fiction, and I really enjoyed them. I didn't quite. This was the hardest to understand. Didn't really get the monkeys bit at the beginning, but the stuff in space was fun. And then sticking with Arthur C. Clarke, even we've got The Sands of Mars. It's not a SF Masterworks. It's a spin-off from Golanx, the Golden Age Masterworks. So not just sci-fi, but Golden Age sci-fi. Again, that's one that I've managed to avoid thus far in my life. Some people describe Clarke's writing as a bit basic, and maybe it is. But I think he's efficient. He moves the story along quite nicely. He doesn't muck about. So I will enjoy reading that at some point. And then I've got another SF Masterworks, again in the yellow spine, adding to my growing collection of these. I don't seek these out. I would much rather have, this goes for all of them, an original kind of vintage paperback with the original cover art, etc., from whenever it was originally published, or a subsequent version even. But you know, I'm not going to kick it out of bed for farting. I'll hang on to this until I find a nicer copy, and then this can go back into the wild. Don't know much about this, except what it says here on the back. Over the course of 2,000 million years, or 2 billion years as we also know it, it describes the evolutionary rise and fall of 18 distinct races of men, of which we are the first and most primitive. So that'll be interesting. And then I have a bit of a thing about J.G. Ballard and whether it's really science fiction. I've read or tried to read a few of his books and found them quite challenging. I didn't like the movie High Rise at the time. I probably wasn't in the mood for it. But I quite like the cover art on this, and it's in good condition. So I will read it if I'm in a really bad mood at some point and want cheering up. Not. Then we've got Bend Over, Voyages. I've read quite a lot of his stuff, and I've got some of it knocking around in the collection. But that's a bit disappointing. There's a big chunk of pages falling out. If I knew what I was doing, I would glue that back in, but I don't. So I'll just leave it there and hope it doesn't fall apart anymore. So yeah, that will add to the Ben Bova collection. And then I've got an Asimov. Unlike nearly all of my Asimovs, which are kind of either 70s or 80s, this is a recent, I think relatively recent anyway. Let's see. Man looks inside a book. You talk amongst yourselves. Yeah, 1996. But it was only published in 1995, so it was. Well, I can't remember if he was still with us then or not. But it's got his sort of the latter of his short stories. So that's the final collection, if you like, of his short story fiction. And then I've got. I found another Witcher, the Blood of, what's it called? Blood of Elves, yeah, which I think is what the first season of the TV series was based on, or maybe the second, I don't remember. Anyway, so this is, I thought this was the first of the set, but in fact it's short stories. I don't quite know where that fits in the great scheme of things. Supposedly very good. Haven't read them. And then I found this. I didn't really look at it too closely. It's actually in pretty shitty condition. It's had like Ribena or something spilt on it, or someone's been murdered near it or something, and so it's a bit out of shape. Not only is it stained, but it's kind of gone all bobbly as things do when they get wet. But by John Christopher, A Wrinkle in the Skin, which is a sort of post-apocalyptic thing. I think a natural catastrophe of some kind wipes out humanity pretty much nearly. So it's a survivor story about. I gather about how they do. So that's an interesting one. Don't know when this was printed. Yeah, 2000. So 1965 originally. But he's the author of The Death of Grass and also The Tripods, if you are old enough to remember that TV series. And then the last few. I've been gradually finding Stephen Donaldson in the wild / on eBay. I've got since I started this nonsense, I've picked up the first and second Covenants of Thomas Covenant. I've picked up, as you've seen, The Gap Cycle. There's one of his short story books up there as well. And then ones that I've read in the past but don't have until now were Mordaunt's Need, which were made up of The Mirror of Her Dreams and A Man Rise Through. So this is a single volume version, big chunky trade paperback size. It's pretty meaty book. But I remember really enjoying those, so I'm glad to have them. I'd probably prefer to have them in just the regular paperbacks, but again, that will very much do for now. I think that was probably £3 or something. Very soon there's going to be a collapse of the book pile behind me. And then this is definitely not science fiction, but again, It's my library, my rules. I found this. It's not mint, but it's in really nice condition. The jacket's in great condition. It is price clipped, and there's a bit of a tea or coffee stain on the text block there, but otherwise it's in pretty good nick. And if I remember rightly, let me see. It's a first edition, second impression, so printed in 1977, shortly after the first edition, first impression would have been published in 1977. So it's not quite a first, but pretty good. I have a feeling big fan of The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings, and I think I've tried to read this once when I was very young and just got massively bogged down in it. So mainly I'm happy to have a nice copy of that in the library, and at some point way out in the future, I'll maybe when I've retired and I've got lots of time, I'll read it. And then the last in this haul, let's see, I found weeks ago now the first and second book in the Otherland series in a sort of typical kind of chunky paperback. But the other day when I was in the Oxfam bookshop in Woodley 10 days ago or so, I found this, and it was a hardback, first edition, by the way, of the same book, the first of the Otherland series, and it's in fairly nice condition. The text block's kind of yellowed a bit, but the cover's in quite good condition. Nothing really to grumble about there. It's a bit bent up in places where it's been, it's not quite been on the book properly and then been squished on the shelves. But that's a nice thing in its own right. But even better than that, when I got it home, it's signed, and I did check on Tinterweb, and that is his legit signature. You can find it online. So it's although as you can see, it's kind of yellowed, there's a bit of foxing on the pages there, but that's the right term for it. But a signed first edition of Otherland, that definitely beats my paperback. Kind of kicks his ass, really. So I will. I'm a bit torn about whether I should just keep this for nice on the hardback shelves and let it just live there, and then I'll keep this as a reading copy. Because I've never read Otherland. I've enjoyed some of his other fantasy books, but I haven't read this one. Right, well that's your lot. That's everything. So I do have another bag down here. It's just a small one at the moment, which I'll save for next time. We'll do that in a couple of weeks or so, and I have a bit of book hunting to do over the next weekend or so. So I should be able to add to that. So that's the end of this haul video. Thank you for watching all the way to the end if you're still here, and I really appreciate it. Subscribe if you haven't already subscribed. Smash the like button. That would really help. And I'll see you soon. I think what will be next will either be a review or a top 10, my top 10 science fiction series. Both of those are in the works, so I'm not sure which one will come out next. But anyway, we'll be back soon with another video. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.